All right, welcome back to Better Odds Sports Betting. I'm Kiev O'Neill.
And I'm Kyle Hunter.
We have a great show for you today because we're going to talk about the New Year's Bowls and the playoffs. And hopefully, we get some great games here. There's some big favorites, is if you've seen Alabama. I mean, who wouldn't they be a pretty big favorite too? Maybe Clemson would be smaller, but it would be a ton smaller. Well, a ton smaller than Notre Dame, but either way, we have some value for you, hopefully, and hopefully you're enjoying the show. Kyle, how you been doing?
Pretty good, good Christmas here. Looking forward to 2021. I feel like, 2020's been a year that we'd like to forget in general,
Yeah.
not sports betting wise necessarily. It was a bummer to miss 5 months of the season. And, just in general, though, 2020, I'm looking forward to it being in the rear view mirror. And let's think that I think, 2021, hopefully it can be a better year.
Yeah, sounds great. And for our show, we're talking about a format. We're going to start doing a little bit of college basketball. We're not sure if it's going to be the first week of January or what, but we're going to start trying to get you ready for some weekend games as well. Kyle, we have a huge slate here. Any weather updates for January 1st?
So weather-wise, there were a couple here for the earlier games. I see Auburn and Northwestern says 13 miles per hour wind. That game's played in Florida, which it's always kind of windy there, so I wouldn't read too much into that. Obviously, we've got some games played in domes, which there's not really anything to say about those. So the games here going forward in bowl season, no significant weather. If you're watching this right as we do it, the West Virginia Army game here for the 31st does have some weather in it, rain and 14 miles per hour wind. So we've seen a big line move in that for multiple reasons. But I don't know that under 40.5 is a number you can take just based on weather. I mean, it's already been beat down. So that's the only game that has significant weather coming up.
All right, well, sounds good. And we are going to discuss right away, get into the first bowl of the day, which I believe is the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. Cincinnati versus Georgia, I believe. It's not the Peach Bowl, though. Which one is this? The Cincy versus Georgia, -7. Total is at 51, Kyle. And why don't you go first and tell us a little bit about the game?
So Cincinnati and Georgia to me is a really tough handicap. I want to come out here and tell you that every game, here's where the free money is and stuff. We know there are no locks. Both of us are going to say that all the time, but I'd like to have a stronger opinion than I have on this game. Georgia is a better team than Cincinnati, but Georgia has a bunch of guys sitting out here, opting out. I don't want to lay points with a team that has so many guys opting out. It looks like 5 or 6 defensive starters out for Georgia in this one. Georgia's defense has been good throughout the year, but they weren't quite as good as they were supposed to be. They had some poor performances. Cincinnati, I think that they should be supremely motivated for this game. I wouldn't agree with anybody that would say, they're disappointed to not. Obviously, they would have liked to be in the playoffs, but Fickle and this team are going to be excited to play this game. Why wouldn't they want to play against Georgia? So the question is Georgia motivated for this one? And I don't know the answer. I do know that Kirby Smart's 4-1 ATS in bowl games. So there's been a couple times that we've wondered if Georgia would be motivated, and they have been. So I want to give him the benefit of the doubt here, and I do think that Georgia is a very deep team. So I'm cautious to just take the points here with Cincinnati because of that. I think if I had to play something in this game, I would probably take the over, 51.5. This one's been bet up a little bit, so clearly liked it better when it was at 49.5 or 50. But I'm not going to put my money on this game. So, do you have anything strong on this one?
Not strong, but I do like the Cincinnati side a little bit here. And I know that people are saying, well, Georgia's been out since the Florida game, so they will be motivated. It's not like when Auburn played UCF. Well, at the same time, I mean, Georgia's expectations are still to make the playoffs. And you have a handful, 6, 7, 8 guys already opting out for this game. And Cincinnati's pissed. I mean, they're in I'm going to do whatever I can to prove that we should have been a playoff team. They're undefeated. They feel slighted. Sometimes teams get a huge uplift, but at the same time, maybe Georgia's going to want to shut them up. Maybe they're going to use that as motivation. I'm not going to go ahead and say that Georgia's not going to be motivated, but they are missing some players. I think the total here at 51, 51 and a half is a little bit of a tell in a way. Why is the number 2 defense Cincinnati, and then Georgia's defense was only bad against 2 teams, Florida and Alabama? You know that they're a defensive team. Why is this total so high? So that makes me wonder that they expect Cincinnati to score some points. So in this situation, yeah, Georgia's probably going to be motivated here, but Cincinnati and Desmond Ridder is going to be very motivated. So I might take a small play on Cincinnati plus the 7. Any final thoughts?
I wonder if you might be able to get a 7.5 at some point. So we'll see what happens with this line. If you get 7.5 with Cincinnati, I would play this. At 7, I'm going to pass, but I don't disagree with your thoughts.
All right, and that was the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. The early money was on Cincinnati at first. It drove it down to 6.5, then it's showing more money on Georgia. Nothing sharp, though. It hasn't really moved it past the 7 again. Let's move on to the next bowl, the Vrbo Citrus Bowl, Kyle, and it looks like Northwestern versus Auburn. Auburn plus 3. The total is a pretty low 43.5. I'll start out here. I think that Northwestern is a pretty scrappy team as we've seen. I mean, look at what they did to Wisconsin. They're just hitting teams in the mouth. But what I will say is if they get behind, they're not the greatest catch-up team. You saw when they had their turnover problems against Michigan State, they just couldn't really pull ahead of them. They were losing that game, and they kind of trained score for score a little bit. And Michigan State did play a little bit out of their minds. I mean, they have to. They smelled blood, and they found it, and they beat Northwestern. But at the same time, Northwestern, very, very great job by Patterson. What a fan! Got the team motivated. They went to the Big Ten championship game and literally had Ohio State on the ropes for so many quarters, 3 quarters of that game, pretty much, right? That game wasn't solved until the very end of the game. And even though Trey Sermon did a great job running against them, I thought Northwestern's just that team that kind of keeps it together. They don't turn the ball over that often, and they try to punch you in the mouth. Well, Auburn's defense has been weak against teams that punch you in the mouth like Georgia. My best thing to do in this, looking at this total so low, I think the team that's up at halftime is probably a good bet because Northwestern's not going to let anyone back into the game. You saw that when they played Iowa. You saw that when they played Nebraska. You saw that when they played Wisconsin. But if Northwestern is losing this game, then maybe you want to take a live bet on Auburn, Northwestern on the back of their heels. They don't like to play like that. So that's the angle that I think is best. And I'll be honest right now, I took -2.5 and I gave that out, but that 2.5 is gone, and it's a huge difference between the 2 and the 3. So in my opinion, right now it's probably a live bet situation. What is your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, there's some -4s out there now, so this line has definitely crept up. I can't lay that many points with Northwestern, a team that plays a lot of really close games. I like Northwestern as either a very short favorite or as an underdog. And Fitzgerald's a coach that I really like to bet on. 6-3 ATS last 9 bowl games for Fitzgerald, so he does usually have his team ready to go. Auburn, a lot of question marks with the coaching change and, how will they show up for this game. In general, I would like to bet Northwestern here, but I can't lay 4 points with Northwestern. They're not that good of a team. They're not that talented. I like Northwestern. They're a team that I'd certainly rather bet on than against. I will say Northwestern's defense is number 1 in the country in opponent QBR, so they've been extremely good in the secondary. Their weakness has been stopping the run, as we saw, when Sermon went crazy on them in the second half of that game. But I don't know that Auburn really has anybody that can run on them that much. And Bo Nix has been pretty weak. As far as the total, I want to say 43.5 here. It's tempting to take unders in a Northwestern game, but in bowl games with a low total, total under 45, 45 or less in bowl games, the over is 14-4 in the last 18. So I'm going to caution you from taking an under in a bowl game because a lot of times in bowl games we see more, gimmicks and plays that you wouldn't have seen throughout the course of the season. So you can get some teams that usually don't score quite as much that have a little bit higher scoring games. So I'm not going to bet the over, but just a cautionary note as to whether, normally I'd want to bet an under with Northwestern, but I'm going to pass this time.
Yeah, you'll see a lot of double reverses, pitchbacks to the quarterback, and maybe even the hook and ladder. Who knows what you can get during bowl game. Plus, teams are more desperate at the end. You can see a pick six at the very end and completely destroy that over. I absolutely disagree. Let's move on to a bigger bowl game, Kyle. Well, it's not even really a bowl game. It's one of the championship games here. And we're going to start out with Notre Dame versus Alabama. And this is getting moved to Arlington, Texas at AT&T Stadium here. It's the playoffs, my man. What a huge spread. I wrote it down at 19.5. It's past. It's at the 20. It's creeping up. What are your thoughts on this one?
Really, really tough game. I mean, you want to lay 20 points with Bama? I mean, I don't want to take the points with Notre Dame, but I don't want to lay this many points in a semifinal game because, I think if you want Bama in this game, you like Bama in the first half because Bama could lay off here. And why would they show their best plays? Why would they play all their starters if they're up 28 points or 24 points at the end of the game? Backdoor touchdown could certainly happen in a game like this. So that would worry me quite a bit about laying a big number. As far as the total, I think Bama's going to score their points. So I tend to lean over, if anything, here, 65.5 or 66. Can Notre Dame score enough? I mean, that's really the question in this. I don't think Notre Dame's going to stop Bama. So, rather than lay the points, I would rather take a Bama team total over or play Bama in the first half here in this game. Bama in the first half has just absolutely blitzed people all season. I really don't think that Notre Dame, as good of a defense as they are, and they're well coached on defense, I don't expect them to stop Bama. I mean, nobody's been able to do it this year. And I'm going to have to see it to believe that somebody can actually stop them. So I don't think Notre Dame can do it here. Can't lay the 20 points full game. Do like Bama first half some and maybe a team total over for Bama.
I think if you wait on this game, if you want to bet Notre Dame, it's the best thing to do. You don't do it now. I mean, 19.5 is just teasing it for the public to get on it. I mean, that's all that really means. I think there's a really good chance you're going to get a 21.5 by kickoff. And to be honest with you, I think this spread is too big. I mean, my power rankings have it 15, but Bama, they usually score at will against people. But I mean, if you're Alabama in this game, what are you going to do in the fourth quarter if you're up by 26, 28, 21? Whatever points, are you going to risk injury to Mac Jones? Are you going to risk injury to Najee Harris when you're already down Jalen Waddle? Are you going to risk injury to Smith? I mean, that's some serious things to consider here. And I know Notre Dame got blew up bad by Clemson, but Notre Dame did score in the fourth quarter. They're going to try to score all the way to the last minute of this game. The back door is wide open for this game. So, in my opinion, I don't have a problem betting it. One problem I might have with the first half, Kyle, and I did think about this, was that is Bama going to take them that seriously? Do they have Clemson on the mind? I don't know. I suppose they should. I mean, it's Nick Saban and everything, but Notre Dame was embarrassed last game. I'm wondering if they have one of those trick plays. If Brian Kelly's got one saved up for Alabama, that he might even just throw out here in the first half here. The spread's too big for me, and I'll tell you right now, if it gets to 21.5, I'm just going to play Notre Dame just because I have to. I'll be upset if I don't, but I'm going to wait on it, Kyle. I think that's the best bet.
Yeah, I'd wait too if you like Notre Dame in this one. I know Notre Dame has not been good in these playoff games and in the key all the way back to the BCS and playoffs. Notre Dame has not played well in this spot. Brian Kelly's not been good has not been a good ATS coach. Having said that, I agree. You get to 21.5, you almost feel like it forces your hand. I'll root for you if it gets there, but I'm not going to bet Notre Dame in this one.
Fair enough. Kyle, the All-State Sugar Bowl. You have the college football playoff in New Orleans, Louisiana. Here you have Clemson versus the Buckeyes. And I'm sure you've already mortgaged your house and emptied your bank accounts on the Buckeyes here because, that's what you do, right?
That's definitely not what I do in Ohio State games.
I know.
Emotionally be very invested.
Yeah. No, I'm just joking with you. You never bet Ohio State games, and you always talk about that, so I had to throw that out there. But I'll start with this one. I took this game at +8. And I think this is a big spread. And there's a couple different angles you can look at. You can say that Ohio State should be motivated for the horrible officiating last year, and they probably will be. But at the same time, Clemson's had to hear that all year, so they're going to be motivated too. And Dabo Swinney is probably the best next to Saban of getting guys motivated for their bowl games. They're going to pretend they're freaking underdogs while they're favored by 7 points here. I don't know how he does it. He's like magical, but he instills that kind of thing in his players, which is just brilliant, in my opinion. From a metric standpoint, what has Ohio State done wrong? And what has Clemson done right? Well, Clemson blew out Notre Dame. They blew out Miami. But Miami was a rainy day. And you saw Miami play against North Carolina. You saw Miami play the bowl game. They get beat. They can get beat. And in Clemson's other wins, not that impressive to me. Even Boston College gave them some problems for a first half, and then they couldn't score the second half. I like Clemson's defense actually a little bit better than their offense. But in my opinion, this spread is too big for such a high-caliber game with a name like Ohio State. Sure, Ohio State had a bad spot against Northwestern. They had some guys come out because of COVID, but they got past that. And when they get past that situation, we still have to see them play as a dog. I mean, when was the last time you seen Ohio State played as a dog? They're coming in as a dog here. And don't think for 1 second that Ryan Day is not instilling that in these players. My power ratings have this closer to a pick 'em, maybe with a slight favorite with Clemson. I know you're more off, and other Ohio State fans are off because they pretty much are pissed off at the way Ohio State's been playing this year. But for me, I think Ohio State is live here, and anything can happen. I don't like their injury list, but I do think Olave is going to play. I think that Baron Browning is going to play. I think that the key guys are going to be here, and I'm going to see a lot of running out of Justin Fields. I am a little bit concerned for his thumb. He's going to run the ball a lot. Trevor Lawrence is going to be Trevor Lawrence, but at the same time, a lot of pressure on Clemson too, man. Spread's too big. I took it at 8. I would take it at 7. Any thoughts?
Yeah, a lot of thoughts. I'll try not to go too in depth here because I know we don't have too much time. But Ohio State games, I always have plenty of thoughts, right? And I almost broke in when you were saying that they're a live dog here to say this is music to my ears. Just keep going, because I will say that I think that Clemson will probably win this game. I hope I'm wrong. Obviously I'm a huge Buckeyes fan. I really do agree that this is too big of a spread, though. You have to take Ohio State if you're taking a side here because you can't lay 7.5 points with Clemson against a team that is as athletic and talented as Ohio State. Ohio State has not played their perfect game yet this year. They haven't really played all that well, but they still have a really high ceiling. And like you said, Clemson hasn't exactly played a great schedule of teams. I think that Ohio State can probably run the football here. And I think they'll probably try to keep Lawrence off the field to some degree. I'm really encouraged as a Buckeyes fan that Sermon looked so good last game because I knew that Master Teague wasn't the best running back they had. And finally, Sermon shows that he's clearly better than Master Teague. So I assume that, Sermon will get the bulk of the carries in this one. You would certainly think so. As far as the line now, 7.5. I think this is still a fair number to take Ohio State, certainly. 65% of the bets on Clemson right now with 75% of the money or 76% of the money on Ohio State. Clearly some sharp action on Ohio State. I agree. I don't like betting Ohio State games. You have to take more than a touchdown here with Ohio State if you're taking a side because Clemson is a very good team. Sweeney's a great coach, 11-5 ATS in bowl or playoff appearances for him. So he's a great motivator. You could argue at this point he's even better at it than Saban. I'm not saying he's a better coach overall, but he's really gotten his teams up for these big games. Ryan Day is a good coach as well, I think. And, Ohio State supremely motivated after what happened last year. I mean, they wanted this matchup badly. Sweeney's kind of been trolling them here for the last couple weeks, right? I know a lot of my Buckeyes fans, they've been saying, I'm getting the text from my other friends that are Buckeyes fans, like, what is he doing? I mean, like, is he
ranking them 11th? Oh my
I know,
God,
I mean,
that was a bad mistake in my opinion.
I don't understand why he did it, right? Because all it does is give Ohio State more bulletin board material, and maybe they win, and Clemson wins big, and it doesn't matter, but I don't think you want to give them extra incentive. You don't need to give a poke the bear, I guess you'd say,
That's
because
right.
Ohio State is certainly a very talented team. So, all this to say that I lean to the over, but it's moved up 2 points. I definitely like the side here much better. I agree with you on Ohio State plus the
All
points.
right. Well, sounds great. We don't need to talk about. I'm going to do probably 2 units on Ohio State and a half unit on the sprinkle here. Quick NFL game. We got about 3 minutes. Miami versus Buffalo is the one I wanted to talk about. I thought this was interesting because Buffalo's past a 3-point favorite, and yeah, they should be motivated to play the Steelers at home during the divisional round rather than having to go to Pittsburgh. But it's not like it's that far away to go to Pittsburgh, and it's not like that there's that many fans. In my opinion, why are you not, when you're not playing for the bye because only one team gets it, and that's the Kansas City Chiefs, why would you risk so much injury, in my opinion? Why would you do that? Because the bye doesn't mean that much. I mean, does the bye matter if you injure Josh Allen for a sprained MCL, sprained hammy, sprained ankle? It's ridiculous to me. Now, at halftime, I think that, they might be looking at the Steelers, which is a huge dog, and if they're getting beat by this 10-point spread, they might just lay off and bench Allen. I think Miami's the one that's live. They're 10 wins. They might miss the playoffs at 10 wins, which is crazy. If all four of those wild card teams win, I think it's the Colts that miss. An 11-team win could miss the playoffs in the AFC in a year that there's 7 playoff teams. That's insane to me. But at the same time, Miami's the motivated team here. I'm taking Miami. That's my free play, plus 4.5 here. I think that they should be able to cover that spread. And you definitely have a second half chance on this, Kyle. What are your thoughts?
I would take Miami in this one too. I think the only question to me is why are they starting Tua instead of Fitzpatrick? It seems like Fitzpatrick has been the better option, and I kind of assume Fitzpatrick will play in this game. I think they're kind of in a tough spot where they want Tua to be their future quarterback, but he hasn't been as good as Fitzpatrick here, so they don't want to ruin his confidence. But they also know that Fitzpatrick has been very good for them. As far as Buffalo. I like Buffalo as a team a lot, and I think you do as well. I mean, Allen is a really good player. Like you said, Miami has far more to play for here than does Buffalo, and Miami's playing pretty well. Miami also has a very good defense. So that defense, defense travels well, obviously, and I'm going to lean here toward Miami as well. I think that, the total – I would have liked the under, but it's such a low number here that it's hard to take under 44 in today's NFL, right? I mean, you really better like it. So I'm going to say I like Miami some as well. Probably a play that you'd want to take the money line for at least some of it here, because Miami certainly has a shot in this one. And the other thing I want to say real quick is, if you like NFL this weekend, it's really hard to bet games pre-game in the final week of the season. I think live betting makes quite a bit of sense, or second half betting. So I'm going to have a small card this weekend in the NFL.
All right. Well, there you go. Yeah, I think the reason they're starting Tua is because Fitzmagic sucks when you announce him as a starter. It's a crazy, intangible thing. No, seriously, I thought about this hard. It's an intangible thing in Fitzmagic's mind. He has to come off the bench to start kicking butt. If you call him a starter, he's going to throw 5 picks. I mean, and that's why sports betting has the art to it as well as the metric to it. It's got the actual numbers and it's got the situations. So, and that's what I love about sports betting. But this is exactly what I think they should start Tua. If he doesn't score a touchdown the first drive, pull him out and throw Fitzmagic in, because that's what works for you. No, absolutely love it, Kyle. Any free plays that you have for our listeners?
So I'm going to go with my free play being Ohio State plus the points. So you and I agree
All
quite a
right.
bit on that one. And I do have to say that I never bet Ohio State games, almost never.
Mm-hmm.
And in this case, it helps because I'm actually rooting for my team and my bet. So I'm not conflicted in any way. But in general, I don't bet Ohio State games. But my numbers are not nearly as high as 7.5. They're not quite as low as yours. But this is too big of a spread. And when you consider what you have to pick from on these New Year's Day bowl games, it's the one that's farthest off my number. So I'll take Ohio State.
All right, Kyle. Well, that's great. Where could our listeners find your information and plays this weekend?
You can go over to huntersportspicks.com, check out my premium packages there. If you want to sign up, long-term subscriptions are your best value usually. And if you don't want to pay for picks, you can go and sign up for my free pick newsletter there at huntersportspicks.com, where you'll get free picks from myself on the weekends.
All right, and check us out at the Oddsbreakers as usual, where we give out free picks. And now check us out on BetSperts. We partnered with BetSperts. We're going to have share our free podcast picks on there. It's not going to be on. We're not going to put them up as quickly as we do the podcast because we still want you to listen to our podcast. But we're still going to put some free picks up there, maybe a few extras, as well as some premium plays as well. So we're really excited for the partnership with BetSperts. They seem to be a very good app to use for y'all. All right. Well, thank you so much for listening to this show or watching this show. Hope everyone has a happy new year tonight. Let's get the heck out of 2020 and bring on 2021.